Am I my brother's keeper? Am I my brother's keeper? Well, you better sit your $5 ass down and make some change because today we're looking back at New Jack City. Hello, welcome to another edition of The Look Back. I am your host and the necromancer of film, Joshua Klein, always joined by my brother's keeper, Frankie. Frankie, say hello to the people.
Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's your boy Frankie B. I'm not the necromancer of movies. I'm just a regular guy that watches them and tries to not die. No, it's fine. Man, I am excited for this movie. I think everybody knows New Jack City, Nino Brown. That's one of my go-to movies. I've been talking about it for a minute now. I'm really excited to get into this one, Josh. Go ahead and take it away.
New Jack City. It's a film for sure. It's a fun film that has a lot of resemblance to another film that I will get into as we get into the review. I think it's a movie that shows that Wesley Snipes is that dude. Is that dude. And Ice-T playing a cop before he was Law and SVU. It's funny because he had a rap song called fuck the cops, and then he becomes a cop. And Judd Nelson's in this movie for whatever reason. But I've previously seen this movie. I would say I saw this movie back in 2016. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've seen it, and now I own it. But what I remember from it was, of course, Nino Brown, the line of my brother's keeper, sit your $5 ass down. The Chris Rock crackhead Pookie, that whole thing, really, I remember that, and that's it. And while I watched the movie, I was just like, wow, this movie takes a lot from the two Scarface films, and it has bits of Shaft in it.
Yeah.
So it's funny that we have already talked about Shaft, and now here is a movie that is taking the inspiration of Shaft. I mean, it's set in New York, just like Shaft was. There's kind of Italian mob dealing with Nino Brown. I'm like with a gangster. I don't think that this was happening in Harlem like in Shaft. This was happening in a different section of New York, but still a bad area. Is it both Harlem?
Yeah, no, it's Harlem.
Okay, so yes. Okay. Yeah, I think that New Jack City is a star. I think it's what Wesley Snipes really opened the door with his charismatic character of Nino Brown. But Frankie, before we dive any deeper into the film, let's get a plot summary so that people can understand and kind of understand what they watched as we dive into the movie.
All right, cool. Yeah, so this is New Jack City. It was made in 1991. It is directed by Mario Van Peebles, set in the late 1980s into the modern day, but at that time, that's 1991. It follows the crack epidemic as it hits New York City, specifically the Harlem area. The film follows mainly Wesley Snipes as Nino Brown, the leader of the CMB. It also follows a couple of other characters such as Ice-T and, Josh, you said, Pookie, who starts off as a stick-up kid, then he becomes a addict, and later on they say agent, but really he's just he wears a wire. It's a major part of the movie. That being said, this movie actually did not win any major awards, but it did help launch the careers of several people and also elevate the careers of Wesley Snipes and Ice-T, which is why they pretty much blow up from this time on, right? 1991, I would argue the 90s in general, especially the beginning, Wesley Snipes was on a run that a lot of people were envious of. And a lot of that started because he got to show off his acting chops in this movie. That being said, this movie didn't win any major awards, but the soundtrack is platinum. And that's actually one of the reasons why I love this movie, because it has the New Jack City song on it. And it also has a couple of other artists that are cameos in the movie. So that being said, as always, Josh, I thought your summary was pretty good. The Pookie character is I remember it as the meme, I think from 2012, 2013, where it was it just keep calling me, man. It just keep calling. It was you just looking like a candy bar or something like that. So it's keep calling me, man. But
bro.
man,
When
Pookie
we
is
get, dude, when we get into that whole Pookie like section, because it feels like a section of the movie of just Pookie.
yeah,
Uh,
for
uh,
sure.
I don't want to show my hand, but there's some. And okay, so Mario Van Peebles is the son of another famous actor director.
Yeah.
Um,
So Mario Van Peebles' dad is. Give me 1 second. I actually got it right here, Josh. His dad is boop, boop, Melvin Van Peebles. And
Melvin Van Peebles.
yeah, Melvin Van Peebles actually recently passed away two
Oh.
years ago. But he himself was an actor, director, and also a screenwriter. But he was a screenwriter during a time where a lot of movies were not giving him credit. One of the movies he made and created was Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, which is the other black exploitation movie that we almost chose over Shaft. So this is kind of a cool like moment for me because I actually really have followed the Van Peebles family for a while. So I was really excited for Mario to get, or not excited for him, but excited to see his directorial debut because he's got a couple other movies out there that I'd love for us to watch. So
Yes, and Mario Van Peebles is also in this movie as a cop. This
mhm.
film takes a lot of inspiration from other films, and because I had the pre knowledge, because I did a report over the 1983 Scarface for class, and they referenced New Jack City in the paper I was reading from our research, and how like it's kind of like Scarface 1983 is kind of in between these two eras of black exploitation hood films, where it's kind of like African Americans took Scarface, Tony Montana, and they saw themselves in it. And now what they saw was like a guy, an immigrant, going through an American system that was corrupt, that he was able to take advantage of. Because of that knowledge, I was able to like, this is almost like a sequel to Scarface, to that 1983 Scarface. There's a lot of the way that Nino Brown acts is very Tony Montana.
Yep.
Or he is inspired by Tony Montana. But Nino Brown and Tony Montana are kind of the same thing. Even a character asks Nino Brown's like, you're going to be like Tony Montana, but you're going to do better. But he doesn't, because his downfall is technically lust and trust in his lust is kind of his downfall, but also, well, the lust for another woman over G money is really what his downfall. Like when Tony killed his best friend Manny, kind of was his downfall too.
Mhm.
So I got a lot of Scarface in this, and with the cops with the Ice-T, which is Scotty, it reminded me of Untouchables, which is all about going after Al Capone.
Mhm.
A lot of okay, and I'm gonna say off the bat, this movie's wacky.
Yeah,
It's really over the top. Now it's probably purposely that way when it comes to the Nino Brown, because when we first see him, the movie opens. I love the opening of the movie because it sets you right in what the stakes are. Okay.
Yep.
So it might be stock footage of just New York. Okay. We're seeing we're seeing the island. We're going through. We're hearing some Queen Latifah, and it's kind of going through the news about what's going on. Which is weird because it's supposed to be set in the, I think 1986. I think is the setting of the first part of the movie. It's 1986, and they're saying like, well, the wealth gap between rich and poor is getting bigger under the Ronald Reagan era. I mean, that's something that's going problem today. The wealth gap has increased so much, and then there's a line about the deficit is like 55 million. I was like, brother, it's in the trillions now. Like it never got better. It
I
never
know.
got better.
I was like, wow, we actually probably could have done something about that. Like,
Right. Yeah. So it's like, all right, so we're getting a sense of the rich is getting rich and the poor is getting poor, and we're seeing the desperates, the desperation within this community. And then we're introduced to Nino Brown right away. And bro, God. So the guy is hanging from a bridge, I think from Dada Man. I think it's the Dada Man who's holding him. And Nino Brown comes in there, and apparently this guy owes him money. And Nino Brown is wearing this big ass fucking gold chain. He's wearing the Kango hat, like totally fucking. it's so over top. It kind of almost wants to draw you out. But then I was like, because it's called New Jack City and how it's aping like 20s like gangster films, and I was thinking of Dick Tracy a little bit too. So I was just like, Nino Brown's supposed to be this over the top. Like, okay, so like this design, this idea of this Nino Brown being larger than life with the big fucking, with the chain and everything, and like the fact that they killed this dude who owes him money and just drops him off the bridge. I was like, God damn, what an introduction to Nino Brown.
Yeah, it was an absolutely great introduction. I think that it also sets up to some of the stuff that you see later in the movie, which is like how his crew kind of operates, where he's obviously in charge, but also like they do some stuff in this movie to where it's like it's one thing to kill somebody, but it's another thing to like be mocking him as you do it. Like,
yes,
see ya, and I wouldn't want to be. And he's just like, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And it's like New Jack City. I'm like, all right, let's go. So,
and that's the main difference between Tony and Nino, is that Tony had some redeemable qualities about him that Nino doesn't have. Nino is bad throughout the movie. I don't think the only redeemable quality I think he has is the relationship he has with G Money at first. Because there's a real camaraderie, and he actually admit that, I can't have this without you. This is like, okay, when we get to that point. So then after we get introduced to Nino Brown, the film, like, all right, you got to introduce to two other characters. Now it's all about setups. Now we're setting all the characters and where they're at, because where we're going to go is going to be very important. Because then we meet Scotty Ice-T, and he's doing a deal with Pookie. And then there's a chase. Like, Pookie runs off with the money, and Sky is chasing him down. So it's like, okay, like it's kind of, and once, as the chase is going on, we're seeing how run down the neighborhood is, how poor everybody is. Like, it's I like how Mario Van Peebles uses the camera to establish the setting. Like, we're using the chasing, but it's establishing a space. Really understand like where we're at. It's like, what if Shaft failed in his film and everything went to hell and went to a war? It would look like this.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put that. I really thought that the CMB crew, when they start out, they're more of a like not even a comical gang. It's more like you really take them seriously because of that opening scene, but also like you don't see anything until they start like killing people for real. Like when they kill that dude in the broad daylight, like when he literally says like that's how you establish dominance. You shoot somebody in broad daylight. I'm like, that's what they used to do back in the 30s and the 40s with like the gangs and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool, like kind of nod. But man, all right. So what did you think about the idea of him buying that complex?
Okay, I want to wait because there's a very key moment that's very important in this chase scene, because the guy, because once Scotty shoots Pookie in the leg, which I was like,
oh yeah.
So Scotty is a cop. He is not as clean as you think a cop could be, because first he just whips his gun out in front of like everybody there and just shoots Pookie. It kind of like, it shows how like the Wild West this area is, because he pulls out his gun and it just kind of like, and then when he's reading his rights, like, you have the right to remain silent, motherfucker. Like, I was like, wow, this brutality, and I guess it's like, how does it feel to be a black man who's a cop? And I feel like he has to. I mean, there's a line from NWA. It's like black police showing out for the white cops kind of line, right? And I'm kind of like, I feel like Scotty is not doing that. I think Scotty really cares about this community, and he's trying all he can. Like, I feel like he feels like a soldier in a war in this lawless place. Like, it gets referenced about like, I want to get back in the fight. Like, he wants to, but his methods are not, I would say, not straight. Like, he's a great character.
Mm-hmm.
But I like how he looks like a gangster at the time. Like, even like the way he dresses, I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of in style. When we see him 3 years later, he's more into that the quest called Tribe, Questlove, all that shit. But but it's very important, this scene, because the finance guy that goes and meets uh, who meets Nino Brown and wants to join his crew and now work as a banker, does see Scotty with Pookie. That's how I was able to identify him as 5-0, is this scene right here. That's why it's so important as setup, because we already got introduced to Nino Brown. G Money is also there because he's playing basketball, and we see his confidence before because it gets referenced back when he starts doing crack. He's like, hey, I can shoot this jumper and gets money. So it's like, all right, G Money at this time is very confident, very capable, a capable guy. And that's when we meet the finance man and G Money. And that's when G Money doesn't see the shooting per se, but we were introduced because then G Money is the one that introduces Nino Brown to crack. Because Scarface is about cocaine in the Carter era. This movie is about crack cocaine in the Ronald Reagan era and how Nino Brown saw the opportunity to get the American dream by using crack cocaine. Because if you look at the neighborhood he was going from, he wasn't going to get it by playing straight. The only way you were able to even make a difference, you have to make money in America to be anything. And the way he did it was with crack cocaine. Now, once the guy who's financing was like, hey, I want to join you, that is when Nino Brown says, we're going to buy an apartment complex.
Yep.
And I think this is very important. And I think Dredd, I thought about Dredd too, as well. Dredd is the Judge Dredd movie where like there's a big city-sized apartment complex where the drugs is happening there, and then Judge Dredd had to come in there and go by level by level, taking care of shit. But that was different because he didn't need evidence because that's a fascist film. He's a fascist, so he just goes right in without a warrant. But anyways, I thought it was like, but when we meet Nino Brown and his crew, it feels like the Legion of Doom. I mean, you have the girl. Oh, he has a girl in his crew, Keisha, who goes rockabye baby, has her one-liner. Then Bill Nunn, who I know as Radio Raheem and Do the Right Thing, is the Dada Man, and the Dada Man stutters. So it's like, which is not. I get it. I get it. All right. I mean, but it's like because I was thinking of Dick Tracy. That's why I was thinking it's like these are like Dick Tracy had gangster like Hammerhead and all these like these weird looking gangsters. I'm like, all right, this is kind of what it's going for. But when Nino Brown whips out the plans, I'm like, this is some evil super villain shit.
Yeah, no, it was like, yo, hey, I'm the most evil person in New York. But dude, okay, so when he buys that complex, that is something that some gangsters did. I don't know if it was going on during the 80s per se, but I know that was a thing. Like any major drug operation, they try to buy like a bunch of buildings that way their guys can hide in there and also so their guys can do what they got to do, right? Like that's kind of known, especially in St. Louis was a big one. That being said, when they buy that complex, I really liked how the passage of time showed with those guys singing outside. Where at first, like they were all like, "Hey, we're upstanding gentlemen," and it's like I don't know. I assume 3 years. I think it's 2-3 years.
So it's 86 to like because it goes 1986 is when we first introduced the characters, right? And that's when the passage of time happens as Nino Brown's getting the Carter, which like the way he does it. First of all, how he shoots the guy, like how Keisha kills the dude, like a woman. We're seeing a woman commit violence. I don't think I've seen that. You don't see that very often, where a woman like commits murder in broad daylight like that to a man. And then you see when the property owner of the Carter, Nino Brown's literally walking him out with a shotgun while he's fucking just naked, and you're showing how how the police are really not paying attention to this community, number one, because Nino Brown's is allowed to do this. Like, yeah, you could blame Nino Brown for all he's doing, but you also got to think, where is the cops? Where is the actual cops trying to stop him? When we get to 89, you realize the resources are not there because the white people, the rich people, do not care about the slums, so they'll do whatever they want to do. And that's why Nino Brown's able to do what he wants, because it's lawless. There's nothing going on over there. Because Ronald Reagan at the era just, it's weird because Ronald Reagan preached, say no to crack, but there was also a war on drugs, but it made everything worse. And this film kind of like over exaggerates a bit but there is some truth in it. So once he gets the Carter, we jump to 89. It's like a speakeasy. It's like you don't know what's going in the apartment complex because you can't get in. You got to have a code to get in. So that's when Scotty comes. That's when Mario Van Peebles is like, Stone's like, I want a crew. And I got to have this guy named Scotty because he's from the streets. Like, having cops who are from the neighborhood, I think, is what you should do. Because I think that an issue we have is we're bringing cops from the suburbs and we're bringing from the urban area, and they already are scared of black people. And so when they're pulling them over, there's always this sense of fear. Well, if you get somebody from the neighborhood who knows the neighborhood, they can understand the language, they understand the dialect, the you know, all the necromancy that goes on because they're from there. And I think that this is what, like, Stone's like, I need these people, but the police chief was like, yo, for some reason the mayor wants me to do something, but they're not giving me the resources to help. So it's like, what the fuck? But I need results. So there's the movie like does a good job with showing the kind of the political system, like how it's just not helping this neighborhood, I would say.
Mm. Good way to put that. So I guess, do you want to talk about how they kind of built up the empire, or do you want to go into like the crimes and stuff? Because it's more than just like them doing drug deals too. Because they're also like not extorting money from people, but I mean they had an empire, so they were dealing on like a mass scale. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, but they used crack cocaine to get the money first, and then they like Tony Montana, like right when he started making his big deal. It's like the 3-year gap is like we see that montage of those people singing is the Push It to the Limit scene in Scarface, where it's like we're seeing them get money and blah blah blah. It's like after that scene, it's when like complacency happens and mistakes happen, because once you make it to the top and have that much money, like you just want to make more money, but what's too much money? Like once you make it, what do you do? Kind of thing. So yes, they were spreading their allocation because I think Nino Brown, we see him own like the club where the Legion of Doom is at. I believe he owns it. I think he owns that club that the Legion of Doom is at, because they go back to that club too when because okay, I want to get to the cops scene because I want to get to the cops. So, so Stone, Mario Van Peebles hires Scotty, but he also hires Judd Nelson's character, Nick, Nick Apple. And I gotta say one thing: I think Judd Nelson is the worst thing about this movie.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like him. I do not like him in this movie. He doesn't add too much, and when he goes like, "Is that a black thing? Is this?" And like, I feel like he's too intense for the movie. Like, I don't. The movie's so over exaggerated and sometimes so big that he's just, especially when like his one-on-one time with Scotty once the Pookie thing happened, which we'll get to. I was like, I don't buy this, and I just don't buy him. And as this character, he's supposed to be Italian, first of all, and he's the guy who's supposed to be investigating the mob, and he's just like Scotty, like he wants to take down the mob by any means necessary, but he just comes off like a dick, like a '90s dick guy, like a '90s character that you see a lot during this time. You know, remind me of a little bit of Brad Pitt in Seven. Just
yeah, he had that vibe of him. No, I didn't think he was that bad, but I also didn't think that he fit.
No,
they could have literally cut his character out and nothing changes outside of like one scene.
Right, because it's like he was introduced later, and it's not really about him. It's more about Scotty, who at this point he's wearing the he has the dreadlocks. He's wearing the African necklace. This is a time where hip hop was going through a different phase. You have the gangster rap. And you have that. Then you have this, the Jungle Brothers. You have, Tribe Called Quest. You have all these other. You have De La Soul. Just these different rappers who are speaking more to the motherland and trying to be more positive with the black culture than speaking more about the realities of how gangster rec kind of exploited the crimes that was going on in the neighborhood. They were speaking truth, but there was over exploiting as well. And I feel like sometimes the film feels like a critique of hip hop music at that time, that what was going on after NWA and what was going on. That's just me reading too much into the film.
I don't think I should read too much. I mean, I think that's honestly pretty spot on, though.
Well, yeah, and there was a New Jack City like style of music that was going on at this time too, and I feel like that's the kind of the 20s feeling that's going on here. And I think that really plays well because the film takes so much of the 20s and especially how Nino Brown is like a Scarface Al Capone because he's providing a product to the people that is illegal, right? If the government just legalize it and tax it themselves and regulate themselves, Nino Brown wouldn't have a job. Nino Brown wouldn't be a drug dealer. But since the government makes it illegal and people want it, all Nino Brown is doing is providing for a customer. Now, what he does in The Carter is that he kind of keeps those customers hostages, as he said. And the crack that he's making is so pure, it's just making people fucking bonkers. And I think it's kind of reefer madness to it too, a little bit, and how over exaggeration, how they smoke crack and all the decisions they make. But I think that's on purpose because when you watch the Howard Hawks Scarface, it's trying to point how bad gangsters are. So there's over exaggerations of how bad gangsters are when it comes to prohibition. See here. And I love how the Italian mob gets into it because it can't be New York with an Italian mob. So, and I like how when the Italian mobs hear rumors that Nino Brown is going against their deal, like kind of going I guess it looks like in that 3 years the mob and Nino Brown have kind of worked together to get, but since Nino Brown's like, look. And it shows him right here. He doesn't give a fuck about anybody but himself and his own greed.
Yep.
Which in Scarface in 1983, it was also don't ever underestimate the other guy's greed. Don't ever estimate. And I love when the Italian guys kind of come in there and I love how the Italians, every time they interact with Nino Brown and that group, there's like racism thrown at each other, like just all day.
Yeah. I mean, that's like I don't want to say it's not a cultural thing. I'm not going to say that, but that was the thing that I saw pushed kind of. I watched The Sopranos recently, and that was actually a really big thing on that series. Was there was just like a lot of animosity between Italian and Black people. I didn't grow up with a lot of Italian people that ever said anything like that to me, so I didn't know that. But apparently, that was like more of a thing back in the day. So I don't know. That is something I noticed and thought was kind of odd too. But at the same time, I thought it was just them trading jabs to try to get under each other's skin in the scene. I didn't realize it was like a bigger. Like it's more of a thing in gangster movies when the people of like another race show up here, they're not really cool with each other. Like they might be from a crime standpoint, but
I think it's a New York thing because Do the Right Thing has that animosity between the Italians and the blacks. I mean, Shaft had it too. I mean, but it's just like they are people that were, I would say, Italians were immigrants that came over that the American government kind of like treated like shit. And you got African Americans, the government also treated like shit. So here's these people trying to come up from that oppression that they were feeling. And because of how the American government is, it's almost like they turn them against each other, especially because it's like there's like, because of the American greed and always having money. It's like they kept crossing paths over and over again instead of like working together and, doing something good. They just they're doing crimes because that's first of all that's the only way they feel like they can get money in America.
Yeah, it's kind of sad too.
Yes, it's a theme in the film that it happens over and over again where like even when the cops win, they don't because of money, greed, money. Where it's like there has to be violence. The only way to get real change is through violence. Because the end, which reminded me a lot of Scarface. This movie is Scarface. This is a sequel to Scarface.
I can confidently say that it's a black Scarface because they came out within so long of each other, but also like this has like to me it has a mix of Scarface, Shaft, like, but that black exploitation in particular, which is what takes
Yes.
it over the top with some of
Yes.
the acting. Because there are some people in here, like for the characters that they are playing, they're acting their asses off. But it's like you can tell they're playing a certain kind of person. Like that girl saying "Rockabye baby" when they shot that dude. Like
And that's her catchphrase. She keeps saying it.
he
Rockabye,
said like four
baby.
or 5 times. I was like, bro, it was cool the first time you said it, but let it ride after like the third or fourth.
And she reminds me. I don't know if you. Okay, she looks like okay. Remember the twins in Coming to America?
Yeah,
They were rapping.
yeah,
Kesha, the one that says "Rockabye, baby," it looks just like them. And
yeah.
that's just I was just thinking the JJ Fab girls. It's JJ rocking you. Like I think there's certain era of hip hop that I'm just like I love late '80s, early '90s hip hop. Like that's just my bread and butter. It's when it's the grimiest, um, rawest form. But I liked when when Italian and Nino Browns are talking together. Nino Brown's wearing this red ass suit, and all I could thinking of was Bumpy Jones and Shaft. Like I think this is the direct reference because Bumpy Jones in that movie was trying to go against the mob as well. That's why the mob stole his daughter. But since Nino Brown doesn't have a daughter, that's not what's going to happen here. Instead, the mob is going to be like, look, we're going to let Nino Brown do his thing, but when his opportunity comes to get fucked, we're going to do it. Like I like how the Don was just like, when Nino Brown needs to itch, we'll be there to scratch it. I was like, all right, I get it.
Yeah, I kind of felt like he set himself up too with that scene by like chastising them at the end of it.
Okay, now we have to get to this part. This
Mhm.
part that when I watched the movie the first time, and now this recent time, Pookie. When we get reintroduced to Chris Rock is acting his ass off as a basehead. Just acting his ass off. I mean, his teeth are all fucked. He's just like, come on, Nino. Help me out with some turkeys. Because it's like the Scotty and Apple are doing surveillance, trying to get evidence of the Carter, trying to get some results. And then they see Pookie. They're watching through a rooftop and they're seeing Nino Brown giving back to his community. Something that gangsters do is like they portray that they're good people that will give free turkeys and stuff like that. And there's Pookie like begging for a lot, gets a free turkey, and then takes us back to his crackhead woman who used to be a prom queen. And we're seeing how crack is ruining these people's lives. Like how addictive it is to the point where like this girl had so much for her life in high school and how she started doing crack. Now she's in a broken up, like in a hallway, not even a home. Like she's in they're in an apartment building, like fucking cracked out of their mind, fighting over turkey. Like Pookie, like I love how like Chris Rock did a good job. We're like, yeah, I'm just joking. Like, yeah. And all of a sudden, like he snaps. He fucking snaps and just like almost about to kill her.
Yeah, yeah, man. I like that Ice-T when Ice-T comes in, he beats him up. He's like, "How you gonna beat a woman over some turkey? You a sorry excuse for her, brother."
Brother, I know, like, yeah. So like, I like the fact because of Scotty is into the not the gangster rap version, but into the Tribe Called Quest and Jungle Brothers and stuff like that. Like, excuse of a brother, like almost taking like that 70s Black Panther movement, like because like Shaft, he was like my brother. Like Shaft was all about that too. Sorry, excuse of a brother, like something that Shaft would say, So Scotty's idea is that use Pookie as a way to infiltrate the Nino Brown's the Carter building to get evidence.
Yep.
And then the movie stops to go something that would be like a quick montage or like a quick scene. They're like, no. You have to understand how hard it is to quit crack.
Yes.
And they spent the time. Now, granted, like as the movie was flowing pretty well, and then we see Pookie recover, and they're like, wow, like this journey, like off and on, and how Scotty, I like Scotty in this moment because he is doing his best to help Pookie through this. Like he's there through all the not a relapse, but like through rehab. He let him live in his house. Where Pookie's like, you saved my life. I will do like let me like do this for you. Let me be something in society.
Right.
But bro, But when Pookie fucks up,
Yeah, man.
oh, it's so sad. But you're just like, I wasted my time. I wasted my time.
He's like, oh, like that realization that he was high, like because they did it really
Oh,
well. Like what I'm saying, it shows the rehab, it shows the, because again, in going back to what you said about it showing it you overcoming crack, like I think at one point crack was like listed as the most addictive substance like that was commercially used or something crazy like that, right?
we're
And
now it's opiate.
yeah,
Upward.
opiates. Yeah, opiates have since overtaken it, but still, I mean, crack is still out there. But
Yes.
at this point in time, crack is like rolling through. And I remember I watched a podcast, not to make this too long, but it's gonna wrap up. So I watched a podcast of these guys. They grew up. They were born in the mid 70s, right? So they were teenagers when the crack epidemic hit. And he said literally, you would wake up on Monday, like see your classmates going to class normal. They would come back and like they would have gotten evicted because like their dad was addicted to crack, right? So he said, fast forward like 6, 7 years, they're like 20, 21. He said now it's happening to like their friends. He's like, one day you'd be like, yo man, let's go catch Jamal, man. We about to play basketball up at the whatever. And then 2 days later, he'd be like, yeah, we ain't seen him in a minute, bro. Like I seen him kind of using, so he's about to be cracked out. Like literally saying cracked out, it was so normal. They would even use it as like when you're not actually using it, like on drugs. You know what I'm saying? So that being said, I thought that they showed a really like it's sad, but at the same time, they showed it accurately. Like even in Scarface, they showed like some of the people using coke too much.
Yeah,
Like
I mean the whole reason why the only reason why Tony Montana he got high on his own supply, which there's a character in this movie that gets high on his own supply and causes the unraveling of this business.
yeah. So anyway, the point is it shows also like it's a drug you're gonna relapse with, and then he literally was around it. Like you're just it's like imagine like being thirsty and working in a water processing plant. Like
Yes, like
you
it
know
was never.
it's gonna take the
Uh,
drink after a while.
See, I think Pookie was fine until he got a promotion. G Money is kind of running everything, and they have like a drugstore within the Carter, where it's like where they make the drugs. And since Nino Brown's so paranoid, like people are fucking naked doing it,
Yeah.
which I think Breaking Bad would take this idea and use it over there as well. Um,
A couple
but
of movies taking that idea.
yes, so then I think what really would dive with Pookie is when he was working directly with the crack, because that the temptation.
Mhm.
Because when like the scene where he's like he thinking about doing it, it was so sad. And Chris Rock, like I said, he acted his ass off. That facial expression of him just like about to fucking do it. He's like, ooh, just. Oh,
I was like, "Oh, are you for real, Chris Rock? Like, come on now, dog."
But then when he does, it's like fucking sad. And then the next thing he's like, he just like fucking like, woo.
It's so funny because like him being a comedian, like yeah, okay. Looking back, like years later, looking at like the meme of him doing it, like especially like where it's like it just be calling me, man. It just be calling me, man. But like it's funny to me, but at the time it was cutting edge. I don't want to say cutting edge acting, but very very high quality. And then on top of that, he does show like okay when he's on drugs, like you can tell Chris Rock had been around people that have been on drugs for real.
Right, right.
You know what I'm saying? When somebody acts a little too well, it's like yo, you lived that. You could see it in that scene. So I thought that was really really well done. But yeah, he messed up the big
These,
times.
yeah, in these moments, this is what Judd Nelson really fucking bothered me. Like, hey, what's wrong with your boy? At first, he's like, he can't do it. He's gonna fuck up. Like he already knew. But then
Yeah.
as like Pookie's like, because they're able to see recording on a belt, and he's fucking acting out. He's like, is this a black thing? Is this a black thing? Like, what's wrong with your boy? What's wrong with your boy? And then but here's the thing. Because of Pookie using drugs, it actually started the slow decline of Nino Brown because the fault lies with G Money.
Yep.
Because this downfall of G Money is actually the downfall of Nino Brown. Because Cash Money Brothers is basically Nino Brown and G Money, like they're teaming up. But I don't know if you got it, but there was a weird. You could read it as homosexual tension between the two, but I mean that's me reading too much, especially towards the end where I think G Money was just like I love you, and I think that's like he like loves him like deeply.
Uh, I mean, I didn't see it, but I could
It,
understand it.
you can read into it because it's like because of the woman part because that's when it also starts too.
Yeah, that was the part I was thinking because like he definitely steals his girl.
Well, the girl was a hoe. I mean, the girl was looking up Nino Brown up and down, and right in front of Nino Brown's girl, who was like who couldn't have a baby. So it's just like fuck. And and then they have a sex scene. I was like, you know what, Nino, I can see it because goddamn.
I
And
mean,
I like and also that scene is very important because they're watching Scarface, and Nino Brown goes, the world is mine, like because Scarface, the world is yours. And that's the motto that Scarface took. World is mine. So you can tell that it used to be in a prior scene. Nino Brown was saying to G Money, "This is like ours. Like I couldn't have all this because the crack business booming. They're making fucking money hand over fist." He looks over G Money and goes, "You know this is ours." But
yeah,
now they made the success. Now they're big time. Now it's like no, the world is mine. Is
no,
mine.
yeah. So
So
the downfall of Nino Brown. Yeah, no.
and it starts with with his closest brother. Like, am I my brother's keeper? Like that's what he tells G Money. Am I my brother's keeper? And then after the scene of the Carter being burnt down, which was the moneymaker for Nino Brown, because people were like buying drugs, cops couldn't touch them and stuff like that. Like once that goes down, then they're looking for a new plug, which Scotty and Judd Nelson's character Apple like kind of taking themselves to pretend as they're drug dealers, and at this point, G Money is using crack because the pressure and the failure and Nino Brown basically like this is fucking your fault, like and kills a dude right in front of him. Like this is blood is on your hands, G Money, yo hand. And I think that pressure and there's no outlet of decompression, um, especially because like even in the black male community, there's no mental health talks. It's like that's something that's being talked about now, and like that's why he ran to crack because he had no other way to express himself because he could run himself dead. You can't trust Nino Brown. I mean, like this is the start of the descent, and I think that there's a lot of Mario Van Peebles is towing a line here that I might not like some of his directorial decisions, but the way he's handling the story, I find it. I don't know, dude. Every time the cops are on the screen, I'm just like, this is like I want to see Nino Brown. Like every time Wesley Snipes on the screen, the movie's like a whole nother fucking level. When Nino Brown's not on the screen and there's following Ice T, listen, Ice T, I love him. I love him to death. He's not a lead actor. He's not a leading actor. He is not.
Mm-hmm.
And with Judd Nelson as his body piece, and they're talking to each other, like Judd Nelson's giving me this sad story about how he used to be an addict. I'm like, bro, don't believe you. I'm not buying this.
Yeah, no, it's kind
Because
of hard to
you're
buy.
supposed to emote and you're not emoting. You're just sounding fucking normal.
I feel like where Mario Van Peebles kind of struggled in this movie, he didn't know how to direct the cops, but he was letting Wesley Snipes kind of be his own character,
Well,
where
yeah.
should have focused more on Wesley Snipes. Like if they'd have done some scenes with the cops in the background, just setting up some of the investigations, or even like setting up the Chris Rock as like a wire situation would have been funny, or not funny, but like useful. But it turned into something that it didn't need to be. So that was the crazy part.
So Nino Brown once the Carter Bros up, that's when we get the line, sit your $5 ass down before I make some change because Nino Brown's fucking pissed. And I liked how Nino Brown, like every time he's doing something different, like Wesley Snipes, like he comes in, he's fucking jump roping, like whose fucking fault is this? What the fuck happened here? He's jump roping and shit like that, and like no one's fucking talking.
Why you not saying nothing? I was like, yeah, you losing it, West, or well, not West, Nino. But bro, okay, so can we talk about how basically so all of the people in CMB die, right? Uh,
Yes,
kills G Money. I know the girl dies during the
the
wedding.
wedding. Which dude, I have
Where does the Dada man? Oh,
Dada Man died from when the drug deal that went wrong between Ice T, uh, like Ice T, like you remember he's undercover and they're doing a drug deal, and then
oh,
like that's when the finance guy like that's 5-0. Like I remember that guy, that's fucking 5-0.
yeah,
And,
oh
and,
yeah.
and there was a gunfight, and then Dada Man drop like he falls down from from a ledge thing and like gets up. And I was just like, okay, like I guess the Dada man has some strength because that fall would have killed him,
Yeah.
or at least knocked him out, but
Right.
because he got shot. But anyways,
Yeah, he probably died.
so after the Pookie death, I mean, like Apple and Scotty are supposed to form this brother relationship, but I just don't buy it. It's supposed to mirror G Money and Nino Brown a little bit, but I don't buy them two as companions, as partners. So like I was more interested in watching G Money's downfall because it's his fault. The reason why the Carter blew up because he promoted Pookie into a place where he could get crack. I mean, that was definitely G Money's fucking fault.
But he was
um,
so like I mean I feel like it's an infectious thing. Where it's like
yes,
it was like addicts leading addicts. It's like we're all on this shit. So
right, and I think also I think it shows that an addict never stops being an addict. It's like it's a constant fight you have to do. I think that's another point that it was trying to make with the Pookie character because Pookie gets it fucking rough. Like it gets a bomb strapped to him. Oof. Uh, um, so okay, so I liked how the mob guy helped them out a little bit. Like was definitely working with the cops just to get back with to Nino Brown, and I like, huh?
Just to get back at Nino.
Yeah, I know.
Fuck him.
Fuck you. And that's when it's like itch. And I love how like in the wedding scene, which Keith Sweat is singing at the wedding. Fucking Keith Sweat, my boy.
National treasure, Keith Sweat.
Oh man. And I love how like the mob is there to hit him, and then there's like a little girl there, and Nino Brown picks up the little girl
as a shield.
As a shield. Yes. And okay, at this point, because Ice-T's pretending to be a drug dealer, it's like now he's infiltrating Nino Brown. As like Nino Brown's like, I want to watch him fly on shit. Like he wants to keep an eye on Ice-T's character. Right. And I'm just like, wow, like you could have cut the Pookie scenes and then just done this scene, and I've like done the Ice-T infiltrating, and I think that still would have worked. I think the Pookie stuff was like interesting, and I think like you get a character that's on the crack that was affected by the crack. I think that's interesting. I don't like. I mean, maybe you cut the Judd Nessa character and make it Pookie a little bit.
Heard that actually because it would have made no sense.
Right. I just
would have been more poetic because if Pookie was the bomb dude and then dies by a bomb, that would have been sick.
Because the movie feels like there's two different movies going on in one.
Yeah, I actually felt like the first two acts felt a little bit more. I don't want to say coherent, but once we get more of Ice-T as the cop, like as the infiltrator, rather, that kind of took me out for a little bit of it. Because it's like, why would Nino just instantly trust you? You didn't really do shit other than stop that old man, and I don't know. That was the part that
especially since you're starting to have G Money slip, and then G Money because G Money's like, look, cut me a piece out of this deal because I'm the new king. So there's G Money already going against Nino Brown, where Ice-T will use as a way to, cause that relationship to crumble.
Yeah. We got.
Yeah. So, so they actually do. So, yeah, the Nino Brown's trusting Ice-T, and then they have this drug deal happening. And that's when the finance guy who joined the beginning of the 1986, who basically financed all this stuff, they helped Nino Brown get off his feet, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Identifies Scotty as 5-0. That causes the Dada Man to die. I hate the way the Dada Man dies because it's like a monster villain. Because it's like he's hanging on, he's grabbing on Scotty, and Judd Nelson's character goes, "No!" Boom, 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 boom. And like guns. It reminds me a little bit of Predator, just fucking gun violence all over the fucking place. It's like this is more exaggerating shit. And yeah, and then it's like and he falls down from like a ledge thing, and he's dead, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he gets up and like, oh no, sorry. So it's Judd Nelson on top of the thing that he's going after, and Sky he gets him. And he falls down, and Sky's like, "Woo, that's like woo." Dudda Man's died. And then Dudda Man comes out and about to shoot Scotty. That's when Judd Nelson's like, no! Boom, 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 boom. Shoots him dead. So Dudda Man's dead. Keisha's dead. Now, and so that's when, Nino Brown's like, I got to kill G Money. And Wesley Snipes, and just that scene alone, it just shows you what a great actor, because he's menacing in that scene, but he's also sad. Like, he's fucking, like, tears are pouring out his eyes as he's killing his brother, because I believe that he loved him, Cash Money Brothers, and my brother's keeper kills his friend.
Yeah, I mean, that was a scene for me that kind of cemented this being like a classic, because every kind of old school hood movie always had like that tragic death. It's like, man, they almost made it, or they were friends, or they turned, like, what happened? And then in this movie, it's like, listen, man, crack happened. Like, literally, crack happened, ruined your whole friendship. They were best friends right before that. Obviously, Wesley Snipes' ego starts to take over too. That's part of it. But man, that scene was hard to watch, but at the same time, I've seen it's one of those. It's not even memed to death. It's been referenced in other properties so much to where now seeing it like in its original context makes it a little bit more meaningful.
Okay, so I forgot this point of detail that's very important when it comes to what links Scotty and Nino together. So early in the film, Scotty mentioned how his mother as a teacher died by a gangster for no fucking reason. Like, no reason, shot dead in the head. Right? And that's why I think that's what got Scotty to be a cop, to stop these people. Because he watched a community that's so run down that he wants to make a difference. Yeah. That's okay. So then Nino Brown, as the time as Scotty is infiltrating, Nino Brown talks a story about how he got into his gang, right? Like, you had to kill a person, and it had to be an ordinary person. It had to be like that, right? Mm-hmm. So he tells a story about how he killed a woman who might have been a teacher, put a gun in her head, fire, and then just like didn't even see how she died, just kind of like boom, dead, and it's run off. Well, if you remember, if you weren't really paying attention, it's like the way that Nino Brown's describing, and you can look at Ice-T's face, and I think he could have done a little better with the realization that he's looking at his mom's killer. So flash now forward where, Scotty's looking for Nino Brown. He's hide up in an apartment building that he kind of just took over, an apartment building. And then when Scotty starts beating his ass, that's kind of like, that's his moment. It's like, fuck. And he's about to kill him. And my favorite line is like, man, like, I want to kill you so bad, my dick is hard. I was like, dude,
I'm not gonna lie. The last time I watched it, I was like, hey, pause. Like, I said it out loud, and Ivana, my girlfriend, was like, what happened? I was like, nah. I mean, Ice-T, bro. You supposed to. There could have been. You could have said anything, like anything else. Like, I don't want to do it, but I can't. That's all you had to say.
Okay, this is at the delivery because his eyes are this big. He's just like, I want to kill you so bad, my dick is hard. I was like, godly. And that's when the Judd Nelson character is like, you don't want to do it. You don't want to do it with this piece of shit. Right. So then, Nino Brown goes to jail. And then Nino Brown's courtroom just shows like, look, I'm not the problem. The American system's the problem. It's like, that's when he referenced like, American government keeps us illegal, causes us, all like me to be a drug dealer, blah, 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 blah. And he was able to get like a year in jail. Like, he's able to finagle his way out and then say, hey, I'm not the head of the CMB. That finance dude over there, he's the head of the CMB, not me. So
that's the brother you need to be arrested.
Case closed, man. I'm going to get out of here. And that just shows how powerful the rich is. Like, once you get money, and we're seeing it, well, not get too political, but we're kind of seeing it now with a certain somebody who is rich, who is doing all these crimes, and no one's doing it. Like, he's getting indicted, but he's not in jail. He should be in jail. He's acting unhinged and doing stupid shit. But because he has money and has political power, it allows him to get away with things that I couldn't get away with. Definitely you couldn't get away with.
No.
So just seeing Nino Brown say, like, hey, like, money is not racist. Money is like, there's only, like, to me, like, in America, there's only one color, and it's green. As long as you have that green, dude, you're golden. You're set up. If you're poor, if you're middle class, double birds.
Yeah.
Get like me. So it's like when Tony Montana says, you know, you got to get the money, you got to get the power, then you get the respect or the woman. That is true. Like in America, you got to get the money first before you get the power. It's not, you can't get power and then money. It doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Nino Brown, it takes that over. Like he had the money, and look, he's gonna get 1 year in prison. He's back to doing Nino Brown shit until that old man from earlier comes up and shoots him, and he falls all the way down, and just shows like, you know what?
Hell, wow, that was a great that scene. I was like, yeah, this pretty cool too. I like that he it's similar to Scarface, obviously, but I like that he fell over that balcony.
Yeah.
And it doesn't show his body hitting; it just shows everybody looking at his literal downfall. I thought that was like cinematically great.
It's done
freaking great.
Yes, it's done very. I would say it's done very, very, very well. Hey, I think we've talked about this a lot and enough. So, Frankie, we're at the portion of the show where we talk about if this film holds up, yes or no, and then give our reasons why. So, as we looked back on New Jack City, Frankie, does this film hold up?
Man, I've gone back and forth on this one a lot, but I'm going to say that it does. All right. So here's the thing: if you understand what this movie is going for, it's a combination of black exploitation and Scarface, and it's also talking about the crack epidemic, which, despite some of the stuff that we talked about, which is lacking in the film, such as Judd Nelson's character, I really do think that this is a really solid movie. This is a movie I think a lot of people need to see, not necessarily for like some of the crime stuff, but definitely if you want to understand how quickly the crack epidemic really did hit cities like New York, especially on the East Coast. It's going to show you like what that looked like from the perspective of the gang, from the perspective of the neighborhood, and from the perspective of the police. That being said, bro, it holds up for me, man. I've watched this movie over the course of like my life, and I always find something new to learn about it. Like, you know, like the downfall of Nino is the first lesson, and then the second one, like you can't always trust people. And the third one, like I've learned as an adult, like addiction is insane. Like addiction is absolutely insane. Like, I mean, I can't say that I'm a perfect person, but at the same time, like the way that Chris Rock's character is kind of humanized, that was the part for me that made it like kind of hold up. Because now with the opioid crisis, which you know has touched my like personal life like pretty hard, so I thought that addiction, like showing the addiction rather in that way, is something that would hold up like really throughout time. Uh, that being said, I love this movie. It's a great movie, great soundtrack. Josh, go ahead.
You made a lot of good points, but I'm going to go the opposite direction. This film is very dated. It reeks of everything of the '90s, especially that mid '90s. And it really comes down to the film not feeling cohesive enough for me, because every time the cops were on the screen, I was just like, go back to Nino Brown, please. Like that is the juice and life of this movie. Like the only reason why you should see this movie is because of Nino Brown. But Nino Brown's not in it as much as you think he's in it. It's really focused on the Scotty character, and then Judd Nelson's just not a fan. He even comes in a fucking motorcycle. I was just like, this is just, it just smells and breathes the '90s. And because it's a mismatch of like other films as well, like I'd rather watch those other films. I'd rather watch Shaft. I'd rather watch Scarface. I'd rather watch these other films. And I don't think Ice-T is as strong. Like you're following Ice-T a lot. It doesn't really. It does a lot of good things, I would say. I'm not saying it's not a bad movie. I like this movie. I own this movie. I'll probably watch it again. But there are some flaws in this movie where it holds it back from achieving that all-time great, for becoming timeless, because of the Mario Van Peebles kind of not making cohesive story. How like different like the Pookie stuff is. Like I wish, if you wanted to show addiction in the Pookie stuff, like make that that should be its own movie, not like in a section of a movie that bogs down the rest of the movie, or because then you have an infiltration, like another infiltrating part where you're just like, wait a minute, you could have just took this Pookie scene, got rid of it, put this scene, and I think it's a better, solid, more cohesive story. But that scene is so beautiful. It's like it's a short film within itself. And I just like, there's a lot of things that was holding me back. And what really held me back was just I wasn't as interested in the cop story. It wants to be untouchable. And Untouchable is very good. I hope we get down there, which is directed by Brian De Palma, who did Scarface. So it's like, yeah, I just, trust me, dude. As I'm watching the movie, I'm going, oh my God, I'm gonna say no to this film. Like I'm saying, like I could feel it because every time the cop scenes are on, I'm just like, this isn't working, or it feels very dated. What sucks is like some of the movie's very topical, you know, to today. Like it has a lot of qualities that would be perfect for a yes, but what bogs it down for me is the cops and not enough Nino Brown, and has a lot of that 90s aesthetic that doesn't work anymore. And I just don't feel like Mario Van Peebles as a director as strong. I wish somebody else would have directed it, who has a more directorial sense to really tie in that, to really tie that tone down, to really make it tighter. Like make it tighter. But yeah, so people, that's one no and one yes. So that gets a tombstone. So Frankie, you said yes. So you get to put what is on New Jack City's tombstone. It says, "Here lies New Jack City." What's on its tombstone?
I mean, I don't want to say death by cops, but like, I mean, listen, and I don't mean that in in an insensitive way, but that was the thing that was the detractor for us both. And for the record, that was something I did not like either. I enjoy Ice-T as an actor. I did not enjoy Ice-T in this movie. I actually thought there were two mistakes that they made in this movie because I was on the fence for a while, but the addiction Pookie scenes and then some of the other stuff later for me is what pushed it the other way. But yeah, the cop scenes taking it out, and then I really wish that we would have spent more time just developing the Nino part. Like I wish they would have kind of showed more of the rise, like because it would have kind of helped hit the you want to hit the bell curve with like the rising action and the
Yeah.
so yeah, those are the two things that kind of kept it for us. So yes, on there it would be like too many cops. Just say too many cops, semicolon Judd Nelson. Because my God, that was some bad casting.
Well, okay. So I would say like "Here Lies" is like when I did Predator. Remember, it was I ain't got time to bleed. So you gotta have to be a tombstone. It's a tombstone. You read a tombstone. So what would it say? New Jack City, like colon.
My brother's keeper.
Okay, so
it has to be semicolon my brother's keeper, but also too many cops.
Cops need to sit their $5 ass down and make some change.
I mean, they need to do something in this movie. That and the fact that they made Judd Nelson a bomb tech for like a hot second in this movie, that actually was angering. Like, okay, yeah, you see Pookie's body, which is really messed up, but
yeah,
like he's what wire is it? What wire is it? I'm like, all right, that's a 90s thing. So
come on, dude. And his hairstyle, everything, it just reeked the 90s. Okay, so folks, that's another one down. Another one down. Frankie, you got anything said before we say our goodbyes as the closing credits are coming up?
Yeah, as we always say, please make sure you guys like and subscribe. Let us know everything that you enjoyed about the podcast. If you have anything about what we said, if you agreed or disagreed, please let us know. If you haven't seen New Jack City, I highly recommend that you go watch it and then it'll honestly make a little bit more sense of like some of our talking points after you've seen it. Again, all my socials will be on the screen. As always, please make sure you follow Nerf Media on Twitter as well. We're trying to get the Twitter channel going. We're on Instagram. We're pretty much everywhere now, man. We are building up a pretty nice little channel. We appreciate you guys' support.
Well, I hope I'm your brother's keeper, audience, because this was a lot of fun. And I can't wait to see you next time, because I'll see you at the movies.